She was sold by her own mother, a young pregnant woman trembling beneath the desert sun. And just when her life was about to end in despair, a lonely rancher placed his bid. Not for her beauty, but for something far greater, a chance to heal his own broken heart. What happened next will stay with you long after this story ends. So before we begin, hit that like button and subscribe, because stories like this you won't find anywhere else. The auction yard smelled of dust and misery. The young woman stood barefoot on the wooden stage, her head bowed, her belly softly round beneath a torn linen dress. The townsfolk whispered, some in pity, others in disgust. Her mother, a thin and bitter-faced woman, barked at the auctioneer to start the bidding. "She's no use to me now," the woman spat. "Can't feed two mouths." The crowd murmured, some laughing cruelly. That's when he appeared. Jacob Miles, the quiet rancher from the outskirts of Dustwater County. He'd come for supplies, not a slave. But when his eyes met hers, frightened, hollow, yet holding something pure, he froze. The gavel slammed. "Sold to Mr. Miles of Dry Creek Ranch." The crowd chuckled, thinking him a fool. Jacob walked forward, took off his hat, and gently draped his coat over her shoulders. "You're safe now," he said softly. She didn't answer, only wept quietly as the crowd's laughter faded into the wind. That evening, as the sun melted into the hills, Jacob rode home with her in the wagon. He offered her food, but she barely touched it. When they reached his lonely ranch, she stared at the wide, empty land, endless fences, creaking barns, and the sound of wind through brittle grass. "You can rest here," he said. "Ain't nobody gonna hurt you." She turned toward him and whispered, "Why did you buy me?" He looked away, eyes heavy with memory. "Maybe because I once lost someone and couldn't save her." Days passed. Jacob worked from dawn till dusk, mending fences and feeding cattle. The girl, Mary, kept mostly to herself, helping with chores when she could. Her belly grew heavier, her steps slower. He built her a small room near the kitchen, clean and warm, with quilts his late wife had sewn years ago. One night during a storm, she woke screaming, a nightmare of her mother's cruelty and the faces of the men who once jeered at her. Jacob burst through the door, rain dripping from his hat. "You're safe," he said, kneeling beside her bed. "Ain't no one gonna touch you again." She trembled, clutching her stomach. "I don't deserve kindness," she whispered. He didn't speak, just sat there until her shaking stopped. Over time, silence turned to fragile trust. She began humming while cooking, the sound soft and haunting. Sometimes Jacob would pause his work just to listen. One morning, she found an old wooden cradle in the barn, cleaned and repaired. "Made it for the boy I never had," he said quietly. "Guess it's yours now." Tears welled in her eyes. "You don't even know me," she said. "Don't need to," he replied. "You've been hurt enough. Maybe it's time someone stood for you." The months rolled on, the two souls learning to share space without words. Her laughter slowly returning, his loneliness quietly lifting. The night the baby came, the sky tore open with thunder. Jacob found her on the floor, pale and crying, gripping the wooden table as pain racked her body. "Jacob," she gasped, "it's happening." He rushed to her side, his hands trembling. He'd never done this before, but instinct and fear took over. Hours passed as wind screamed outside and rain hammered the roof. He held her hand, whispering, "You can do this, Mary. You're stronger than you think." At dawn, the first cry of new life filled the room. A baby boy, red-faced and breathing strong. Mary collapsed back, tears streaking her face. Jacob wrapped the child in a blanket, staring down in awe. He's perfect," she whispered. "You saved us." Jacob smiled faintly, his voice low and rough. "Maybe you saved me first." Outside, the storm began to break, sunlight slipping through torn clouds. It was as if the heavens themselves had paused to bless that tiny home. Weeks later, the ranch was alive again. The air carried laughter, small, delicate, but real. Mary tended the garden while Jacob built a small swing for the baby beneath the old oak. He watched her from afar sometimes, the way she smiled now unburdened. One evening, as the sky turned gold, she walked to him holding the baby. "You never told me," she said softly. why you did all this for us." Jacob looked at her eyes glistening. "Because once I prayed for a family, lost my wife to the fever, buried the dream with her." He looked at the child, sleeping peacefully. "But maybe the good Lord wasn't done with me after all." Mary took his hand, silent tears falling. "You gave me life again," she whispered. He shook his head gently. "No, Mary, you gave me reason again." As the sun sank low, the three stood together, man, woman, and child, framed in golden light. The lonely ranch no longer felt empty. It pulsed with hope, with love reborn. Sometimes love doesn't ride in like a storm. It grows quiet, slow and steady like dawn over the desert. If this story touched your heart,